Before we get into tonight's show, I want to give a quick shout out to Elite Mounts in Salina, Ohio. They make top-notch 100% American-made tool organization gear that fits just about any brand of handheld power tools, batteries, and chargers, along with other specialty mounts for your home workshop needs. You can check them out at elitemounts.com. And the guys over there were nice enough to offer a 10% discount for all my listeners. Just use the code Bigfoot10 at checkout. Enjoy the new episode format, thanks to Elite Mounts.
Out in the woods, shadows creep slow. Footprints deep where no man should go. Cold winds howl through hollers and brooks. Whispers of Bigfoot in the way it looks. Mist monsters and bullets in the night. Under a pale moon, strange glowing light. Truth out there like a blade it cuts. Mist monsters and bullets run amok.
Welcome back to Mist Monsters and Mullets. I am your host, John Methencamp. On tonight's show, we have Angie Unruh, and I got it right that time.
Yes.
I met Angie at Beachfoot, and for some reason, I don't know if it was the mullet, she decided she wanted to come on my show. Yeah. But Angie, how you doing tonight?
Doing very good. Thank you.
So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and Squatch'ya doing?
Well, once again, my name is Angie Unruh. I have a YouTube channel called Squatch'ya Doin, and it's all dedicated to my, for lack of a better word, interactions, experiences with Sasquatch. So what I do is I go out and I'm trying to currently to establish a gifting spot with a clan, but it's just my experiences. I just record them. I go out there by myself with my camera. So it's very low tech, very simple. And I just record what happens and then I just post it. And so that's
how long have you been doing this?
I started my YouTube channel back in November of 24, okay. But I've been having experiences before that. And I just didn't get the nerve to talk about it until recently. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to start talking about it, I might as well just go all in. And so I went all in. I started a YouTube channel. I got a Facebook page going, Squatch'ya Doin. And, I'm just putting it all out there because, why not? If they're there, why hide it?
Right. And you're in Arkansas, correct?
I am in Arkansas.
Yeah, that seems to be kind of squatchy.
You know what? Looking back at what I've learned through the years, yes. When I've lived here practically my whole life, and I was having experiences back in the 80s and didn't realize what was going on, and then when I had a couple experiences back about 5 to 7 years ago, that really got me on the path of, okay, what's going on? And as I started learning things, I started having all those flashbacks to things that were happening back in the 80s. And I was finally able to understand what was going on then. And it's like I said, it just put me on a track of not only learning about them, going out and actively trying to find them, and then just putting it out there. And so, yeah, I didn't realize what a squatchy area I truly lived in until I started learning more about them.
Yeah. Everybody that listens to my show knows that I talk about Matthew Orton. He's down there in Arkansas, and he's got areas that he goes and investigates all the time. And, you hear a lot of encounters, not just Falk, all over the state.
All over the state. Yeah, it's true. It's so true. And we're kind of like a little good kept secret. Only us locals really research here. We don't get a lot of Allentowners or stuff coming in to do it, but it's a great place to squatch.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Todd Neese lives down there, so
he does.
There must be something going on down there.
Yeah. You're just not going to make a move from, the Mecca over in Washington and Oregon to any other place where you can't go squatching. So yeah.
So, like I said, we met at Beachfoot, and that was the final Beachfoot,
Was.
which I'm kind of upset by that because my first time there was the last one.
Me too.
So,
It was my first and
yeah.
last.
Um, what did you think of Beachfoot?
It was such a nice time. It was really nice to be able to get with like-minded people and to discuss openly things and be treated with respect, not people laughing at you, mocking you, or, trying to change up what you're doing. But everybody was just truly interested in what everybody else is doing. Just very supportive. And, I really thank Todd Neese for inviting us, and to be able to experience it for the first and last time. But I loved it. It was great.
Yeah. What I really enjoyed about it was, when you go to these festivals or conferences and stuff like that, it's just so packed, and, you just have so many people there, and you don't know who you're around.
True.
There it was, like you said, it was a bunch of like-minded people, and everybody's there just to talk about Sasquatch. You don't have it was just so relaxed. That's what I loved about it.
Yeah. You don't have like test the waters before you start bringing up the subject to see how the person's going to react. You could just start talking and it's totally fine.
Right. I loved it.
Yeah.
And that was my first time going to the Pacific Northwest.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, the location is just gorgeous.
It's fantastic. I love it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Didn't like the gas prices though.
right. A lot. The prices for a lot of stuff out there is kind of crazy, especially being from Arkansas here. I mean, we have our pricey stuff too, but yeah, it was quite pricey. But
Yeah. It was kind of a sticker shock whenever I got off the plane. I was like, "Are you serious?"
right.
I think when I left Indiana, it was like I think I was paying like $2.65 for gas, and I get out there and it was $4.25. I'm like, "Holy cow!"
Right. Yeah. And we drove our RV, and so I'm sure my husband was going, "Holy cow!"
Yeah, I bet. Wow, that was an interesting trip driving all the way out there.
We did. We tried to make the most of it. Like, you know what? He hasn't had like a nice vacation in a couple of years. So like, well, let's just make it a whole thing. Let's just leave for, a week early and take our time driving out there, see certain things, get there, enjoy Beachfoot, and then slowly make our way back home. And that's what we did. It was very nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's get back into your encounters.
Okay.
I don't know how you want to do it. If you want to do it in, true chronological order or from the time you realized Bigfoot's real.
Oh, that's a good question on how you want to do it, because early on, well, okay, I'll just kind of start talking and kind of weave it on how it kind of happened organically.
Okay.
So I've lived in Arkansas most of my life. I was originally from Ohio and would move back and forth quite a bit, live with one parent for a while and then come live with another parent for a while. So whenever I would come to live with a parent here in Arkansas, they lived in a mobile home in a little town called Montanay. It's just outside of where I live. And behind our trailer, there was a big, we call them mountains here. Now, I'm sure people from Colorado wouldn't call them mountains, but we call them mountains, And so we had a big mountain behind our house, and it was all wooded. Back in that time in the 80s, it wasn't developed. There was nothing up there. Where I lived in Montanay in this little trailer park, besides the trailer park and a restaurant and a gas station, there was really nothing else down there. And it was right next to a lake. We live on Beaver Lake. Shout out to Beaver Lake. And there was a little cove, a little finger that came up about a half mile or less from our trailer. So to walk down to the lake would take 5-10 minutes. And then we were at the lake. Like I said, very remote. And I can remember as a kid, being in the house, hanging out with my stepsister, stepbrother, my family, and hearing somebody outside walking around. And I would always ask my mom, who's out there walking? Because, like, mind you, behind the trailer, it was a mountain. There was nothing back there. And she's just like, oh, I don't know. Actually, I don't hear nothing. I'm like, how can you not hear that? And that would happen all the time. There were times I would look out the window, would never see anybody, but I always heard footsteps, but never saw anything. And so after a while, we just called that sound the old man of the mountain. I'd be like, oh, here comes the old man of the mountain, when I'd hear the footsteps. And that was it. I was probably in early teens at that time, maybe mid-teens. And then, that would go off and on throughout the year. I remember one summer we were down at the lake. Like I said, it was just down from our house. And we always called it the point, because that part of the finger, there was a road that you could walk down, and it was like in the shape of a point. So we called it the point. So we'd always just go down there and hang out. We would swim down there. Us teenagers would just hang out, like teenagers do, just shooting the breeze, throwing rocks, just having fun. One day we were down there and rocks started flying our direction, like little pebbles. And there was about, if memory serves me right, 3, 4 of us. And we were like, hey, knock that off. Now, it was coming from the direction of the road. So we had the point where the lake was, and then a little strip of woods, then the road, and then on the other side of the road was more woods. And it was coming from somewhere in that direction. And because we couldn't see real well because the trees that were in between us and the road, all we knew that rocks were just coming our way. It wasn't hitting us, but we were getting thrown at every couple seconds. So we were yelling up there, hey, knock it off, stop it. You're going to hit us. This isn't funny, And then after a while, we're like, start calling out our friends' names who weren't with us. Hey, so-and-so, knock it off. And the rocks kept coming. And we're like, you're going to get it later. If you hit us, we're going to get you. And that was the whole thing. And it kind of just stopped. Well, later on, we were asking our friends who weren't with us, we're like, hey, why were you throwing rocks at us? That wasn't cool. And they're like, we weren't throwing rocks at you. We're like, oh, yeah, you were. Just knock it off. Like, we weren't throwing rocks at you. And we're like, well, somebody was throwing rocks at us. And, we thought it was you guys. And they're like, no, that wasn't us. So I was like, well, that's weird. Well, sometime later, like I said, during those teenage years, it's all kind of a blur, especially when I wasn't anticipating trying to remember all this stuff. So one night, my stepsister and I, we shared a bedroom. We had a big giant water king bed, a king-sized water bed, which was fantastic. But anyways, we shared that room and shared that bed when she would come and stay with us on the weekends because she lived with her mom somewhere else. And like I said, it was a mobile home. So we had the front bedroom. Now there was a single window in there. It had the top and the bottom glass, just the cheap, regular mobile home windows. At that time, we couldn't really afford much window coverings. So I don't even think there were blinds on it. There might've been curtains, but I don't remember that part of it. And in the summertime, it's quite hot. And since we were low income, we didn't keep the air conditioning running. We would just leave our windows open. We had a screen on the window, but we would sleep with the windows open. Well, I remember in the middle of the night, I was farthest from the window. So I was on this side of the bed. My stepsister was next to me. And then there was the window. And I woke up in the middle of the night. It was just kind of like I just sat up and I turned. And as I turned, at the top of the window, there was an outline of a head. It was all black because, like I said, it was night. I couldn't see anything. There was no light. There was an outline of a head with red eyes looking in the window at me. And the head was at the top of the window. And like I said, it was like looking sideways, looking in. And I remember I looked over and I saw that. And I just kind of froze in fear. And next thing you know, it's just gone.
Wow. So do you think the red eyes were from like light from inside the trailer reflecting, or do you feel like it was emanating from the creature?
I don't know. in my recollection, I don't remember any lights being on in the house. We always slept with our door shut. So if there was any light, it would have been coming from our bedroom. And I don't remember like the TV being on. I don't remember any other lights being on. I remember it being dark in there, black in there. So
Wow.
I'm thinking they must have been self-illuminating, unless maybe the moon was catching the light of their eyes. I don't know. All I
Could have
know
been
is
difficult. I mean, if it's up against the trailer looking in, and I mean, it'd be hard for the moon to be able to shine off its face.
that is true too. I'm just trying to make excuses for the Bigfoot. I don't know what he was doing. All I know is I look over and this head is looking through the window at us. And then, like I said, I froze and then it was just gone.
And that had to have been an extremely large individual.
Yeah.
Mobile homes, they set up off the ground, 3 feet. And then
Yeah.
you've got, we'll say 7 to 8 foot ceilings.
Yeah.
That had to have been at least an 8-foot creature.
At least, because it was bent over looking in.
Right. Wow.
So yeah, I've always guesstimated around 8 to 9.
Wow.
And I don't remember anything after that. And so I remember the next morning I was telling my mom and my stepsister, hey, something was looking at us through the window last night. And my sister never woke up. My stepsister, she never woke up. And she's like, what do you mean something was looking at us? I'm like, something was looking at us through the window. I said, it was up here. It had red eyes and it was staring at us. I said, and when I looked up and saw it, it was just gone. And her and my mom were both like, oh, you were dreaming. The typical responses, you were dreaming. No, there was nothing there. You're imagining things, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I'm not. And it was this kind of the end of it, because it was already kind of embarrassing telling them what I saw and them now not believing me. And so I'm just like, well, okay, I'm going to drop it. But shortly after that, my mom did buy blinds for the windows, so we never had to worry about anything looking at us again. And so that kind of.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm getting ahead of myself because
Sure.
sometimes I do that. Do you think your mom knew?
I've always wondered that. I wish her and I would have had a conversation before she passed away, because she always played coy about things. And I think she would do that so us kids wouldn't get scared.
Right.
And because the weird thing about that is the trailer house we lived in, they had a front bedroom and a back bedroom. The kids' bedroom, our bedroom, used to be in the back next to where the mountain was. And it was a small bedroom. And next thing I know, one day I come home and her and my stepdad now are taking the small bedroom and they're giving us the big bedroom. And I always wondered, why did they do that? I was the only kid living there. It made sense for them to keep the big one, and me be back at the small one next to the mountain. I'm wondering if something happened with her. I wonder if she heard or saw something and then switched them, but I don't know. She never said anything. And I was too young at the time to ask questions like that.
And then, you may not remember this because I can't remember the 80s either. Do you remember who came up with the old man of the mountain or old man of the woods?
I started calling it that just because I had heard of that on TV somewhere and it kind of just stuck with me. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to call that the old man of the mountain.
Okay.
And that's just kind of how
I was just curious, maybe if it was your mom or somebody who come up with that, and that's where I was kind of going with that question. But
gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was just kind of one of those freak things that just kind of happened. I don't know where the term came from, but I know we just started calling it the old man of the mountain.
The
Not
mountain
knowing
behind
what it
you,
was.
the mountain behind you wasn't called like Monkey Mountain or Devil Mountain, was it?
As far as I know, it had no name.
Okay. Well, you hear about that all the time, Oh, that's Devil Mountain or Monkey Mountain. Nobody knows why it's called that, but we're seeing Sasquatch there now.
Exactly. Yeah. No, unfortunately, that particular mountain didn't have a name, but there's counties around me that they call Burger County, which is from the wild man, which I didn't know at the time. But now that I'm into the Bigfoot world, I'm like, that makes sense why they're calling it that. even though that's not the technical name, that's the slang name. But
Right. Well, wood booger or the booger man.
yep,
You know, you hear that in Appalachia a lot. You know,
yep,
watch out for the booger man.
yep. We have a lot of places around here with the devil in the name.
Yeah. I think a lot of people do that. I did that with my own encounters.
Yeah,
It wasn't until I started looking into this stuff that was like, that explains a lot, you know?
yep, yep.
So I completely understand what you're saying about, you know, not realizing that what you were experiencing was Sasquatch.
Yeah, and the funny thing is when I didn't put all of those things I just explained, the sighting, the footsteps, the rocks being thrown, I didn't put that all together until probably about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm 52 right now. And so it was like 50 when I really started doing a deep dive because of things that happened that I'm like, I've got to know what's going on. And then when I started reading all these behaviors, like I said, all that stuff just started coming back to me. I'm like, that's what was going on back then. I'm like, holy cannoli. And I was just totally oblivious to it.
Right. I think a
Yeah,
lot of people are, you know.
it's
I
true.
also grew up in Ohio. And you know, there was a couple times where people had said, you know, one in particular where somebody had said that they saw Sasquatch, and we all made fun of him.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
can imagine.
that's how it was back then. You
Yeah,
know, that even if Sasquatch existed, that was a California thing. That was a, you know, Pacific Northwest thing. That wasn't in Ohio.
exactly. And then somehow there's only one of them even,
Right. Right.
Yeah. People are like, there's more than one? I'm like, yeah. We don't live indefinitely, I don't think. There's got to be more than one
That we know of.
that we know of.
So is that the last thing that happened when you were a teenager?
As far as I can remember, that is the last kind of scenarios that happened, that like I said, that I can remember.
Yeah. So then how many years passed before your next encounter or strange happening?
So a long time, and which is really weird because I'm in the woods all the time. I would say probably it's pretty safe to say that practically every weekend for probably 10 years, we were out hiking every weekend. Now, there might have been stuff that happened and I just don't remember it or I didn't pick up on it. So I don't have any recollection of any of that stuff until about, when did the Minnesota thing happen? Probably the mid 2000, somewhere between 2005, 2010, is when I had my next aha moment. That one was kind of weird. So by then, finding Bigfoot was already on TV. So that was my only exposure to Bigfoot stuff. That's all I knew about Bigfoot is what I would see and hear on Finding Bigfoot. And we would watch it every week. We thought it was great. Then one time my husband and I went up to northern Minnesota for our anniversary weekend. We had a place outside of Grand Marais, which is up on the North Shore. You're really far up inside of Minnesota. You're about 2 hours, maybe, from the Canadian border. Probably less than that once you're at Grand Marais. But anyway, so we were up there on the boundary waters. There's a road that takes you up to the boundary waters, which separates Minnesota and Canada. And there's just woods galore out there. And you can just kind of close your eyes and spin and throw a rock and you're going to hit water. I mean, there's just water everywhere up there. It's amazing. I mean, so their little slogan, the land of 10,000 lakes, they ain't lying. There's water everywhere. And so we were up there, we were driving around on this road because everybody said that's the road to go on to see wildlife. So we really wanted to see bears. We were wanting to see anything we could see. And we saw a bear and we were all excited. So we drove quite a ways down, didn't see anything else. So we circled back and we were on our way back home. And there was a sign that said Moose Observation Area or Moose Lake or something like that. I'm like, hey, let's go and see if we can go see a moose. That'd be awesome. So we whip into this little gravel parking lot, and there's a hike that takes you back to this pond. Even though I think they called it a lake, as a pond. And well, at least here in Arkansas, our standards would call that a pond. And
so what you're saying is Minnesota's padding the numbers on that 10,000 lakes.
I think so. Yeah, I think they should call it more than like 10,000 ponds. But and so we get to the little gravel parking lot, and we're walking up this hill to get you on this path to go back to this observation area where you can maybe see a moose. And we made sure that was getting close to dusk, because everybody said the best time to see a moose is either in the morning or at dusk. So we were like, okay, great. We're timing this perfect. We're going to go back there. We're going to sit and hopefully we'll see a moose. So we're walking back there to the observation area over this pond. I would say maybe a half mile. I don't know the exact numbers. I'd have to look it up, but it was all just there's no like official path. You're just walking in the woods. I mean, it's cut, but there's no pavement or any of that jazz. It's just typical dirt. And you're walking down there, and my husband and I were all excited. We're talking about, seeing a moose. This is going to be awesome. Everything was perfectly normal. So we get there, and there's the observation area needed some upkeep because it was kind of grown over. And so we were like trying to look at the lake through like tree branches and stuff. But in a way, it's kind of cool because then you're camouflaged. And so if something does come up, they're not going to see you, but then also it's kind of hard to see them. So we were like, trying to get in a good spot to see things. And then in a blink of an eye, everything changed. All of a sudden, I look at my husband, I said, it's dead quiet. And he's like, yeah, it is. I mean, there wasn't a cricket, a bird that you could hear a pin drop. It was dead quiet, just out of the blue. And all of a sudden it felt like all the air got sucked out of that area. I mean, there's like this heaviness kind of came over, and it was like, I'm like, something's weird. I said, and I remember in Finding Bigfoot, they said when the woods go quiet, normally Sasquatch is around. So in my head, when everything went quiet, and I was like, that's got to mean there's a Sasquatch here. And so I'm like, we got to go. There's something not right. We got to go. And all of a sudden, like this really fear just came over my husband and I. I'm like, we got to go. And so I was only like 3 months out of knee surgery, and I had a knee brace on, and I'm trying to walk as fast as I could to get out of there. Now I had enough self-awareness to know not to run. Because just in case I didn't want to get chased.
Or a wolf.
Exactly. So I have never had that amount of fear wash over me at all. That was like the first time that had ever happened. And we didn't know what was going on. All we know that at 1 minute, everything was light, fun, and jovial. And the next thing you know, it is heavy, dead quiet, and we're just terrified. And I've been in the woods my whole life. That has never happened. And so we booked it at walking as fast as we could back to our car, like that half mile. And I'm telling you, if my skeleton, my bones wanted to jump out of my body and go ahead of me, I could not get out of that area fast enough. And like 5 minutes before, we were all excited about being there. And we get in the car and we take off. And I'm like, what was that? He goes, I don't know what that was. He goes, that was weird. I said, that was very weird. And, I was already kind of equating it to Sasquatch, but I'm just, I don't know 100%, but I've been around other animals and I've never had that type of fear wash over me. I've never been in the woods when it's gone just extremely quiet. I mean, not a breeze, nothing. And so after that, I started kind of becoming more aware of Sasquatch and what that might mean. But I was still really only watching Finding Bigfoot. That was still my only, knowledge of Bigfoot. I'm like, surely they'll talk about it. I'll learn more that way. And then I ended up going up to Southwest Harbor, Maine. I almost forgot the name of the place. Southwest Harbor, Maine. It's about 30 minutes outside of Acadia National Park. And I went up there. I have bad allergies. And so I have to leave the state twice a year to get away from the allergies because nothing works. So
Well, don't come to Indiana. I'll tell you that.
right. Well, that's good to know. I'm always trying to find a place where I can go. But so this particular year, I went up to northern Maine because by then everything was all froze out, and for everything that was starting to bloom here, I knew that was safe. So I got an Airbnb house and I went up there not knowing anybody, not knowing anything about the area, and never had been to Maine before. And so I'm going up there for like a month by myself to get out of allergy season. My husband goes with me the first couple of days, and then he goes back home to work. Then him and my daughter and my now son-in-law came up halfway through my little stay up there just to visit me and hang out and check out the area, and then they left. But things happened when I was there. And that is what really got me into the whole, I have got to know these things. I got to know what's going on with them. I've got to educate myself because I'm having far too many experiences and I don't know if I'm in danger or not. I don't know what to do when this happens. I've got to educate myself. And so that's what got me started on the path. So do you want to hear what happened in Southwest Harbor?
Absolutely. But first, I have a question.
Sure.
When you were in Minnesota, what time of year was that?
August.
August?
It was the end of August. Well, I'm sorry, not the end. Our anniversary is the 12th, so mid-August.
Okay. And then when you were in Maine?
When I went to Maine, it was October.
Okay.
The magic month, but didn't know that at the time.
Seeing if there was a correlation in time of year and stuff like that, but I mean, kind of, I guess.
Yeah, not too far off, maybe like a month in between.
Yeah.
But like I said, so I went up there, I got a house. It was still kind of their off season. Things weren't opening up yet. And so you know what? I take it back. I always do this. I went to Maine twice and I always get the dates wrong. This one happened in April. This encounter happened in April. My other one happened in October. This one was April.
Okay.
Two different places in Maine. Anyway. So in this one, Southwest Harbor, it was in April. And the snowbirds hadn't come back yet. So everything was still pretty shut down for the winter. It was still cold, still pretty cold in the 30s. And so I would go do things. I would go out and just do day trips during the day just to keep myself entertained. I was there by myself. And so I would go do hikes. I would go to Acadia National Park. I would just, drive, do road trips. Everything was great. I would normally get home before dark and, get myself all, tucked in the house, get everything locked up so I'm safe, secure in the house. I'd make myself dinner and then just sit down on the couch the rest of the night, watch TV and chill. That was kind of like my daily thing. And during the day, everything was fine. And so like I said, my husband was with me the first couple days. He ends up going home. And so now I'm there alone. And I would say things started happening pretty quickly after he left. At first, I would kind of equate it to, Angie, you're just not used to being by yourself. You're just scared. So what would happen is I'd just be sitting on the couch at night and this fear would just wash over me for no reason. I'd be sitting on the couch watching TV, eating dinner, everything cool. And all of a sudden, I'm like scared for no reason. Nothing's knocking on the door. Nothing happened. I would just suddenly get scared. And I'm like, what is going on? And this would happen night after night after night. And I'm like, this makes no sense. You're perfectly safe in here. Yeah, nobody knows you're here, but that's okay. Nobody's messing with me. Nothing's happening. Why? Every night, once the sun goes down, because during the day I'm fine, but once the sun goes down, I start getting petrified. And now to circle back to my story of when Sasquatch was looking at me through the window in the mobile home, ever since then, I've kind of had an aversion to being seen through windows. And so there was one window in this house that didn't have blinds. All the rest of them did. But this one was a huge round circular window, which was near the front door and then the stairs that led upstairs to the bedroom. So you had to pass this window to go to bed at night. And every night when that fear started coming, I was like, I don't want to walk past that window. And I don't know why I was thinking that, but that was already coming into my head. I don't want to walk past that window. I don't want to walk past that window. And it happened night after night after night. And like I said, I'm there for a month. Now, things started escalating. I don't recollect when things started escalating. Rough about a week after me being there. Like I said, my husband was there for like the first 3 or 4 days. And then like for 3 or 4 days, things were normal during the day. But then I would get scared at night. Well, then one morning, I go to leave the house to go on just a day trip. And I opened up the door and I looked down and there's just this debris all over the porch. And before, the porch was perfectly clean. It was just a small concrete porch that they poured. And I'm like, what in the world happened here last night? And to myself, I'm thinking, oh man, the raccoons had a party. And then I look down and there's a rock at my door, right on that metal threshing. You know, when you open a door, there's always like that metal, kind of like 3 inches by, I don't know, 6 inches of that metal flashing that you walk over. There was like a mandarin orange sized rock laying there right in front of the door. And I was like, that's weird. I'm like, nobody knows I'm here. No stranger just going to be coming and leaving a mess on my porch and leaving me a rock. And I'm like, raccoons, that's kind of not their behavior. And I was just kind of stumped at why there was a rock. I mean, it was placed right where you could not miss it. And I was like, that's really weird. Now, still on my radar, Bigfoot is not popping up. I'm still thinking this is weird. So I just kind of throw the rock into the driveway and I leave. And I come home, just like my normal. I get in the house, lock everything up, shut all the blinds, except for the one window that didn't have one, and eating my dinner. Once again, the fear thing starts happening again. Like around 9, 10 o'clock at night. This happened every single night. And, I'm starting to get scared. And I'm starting to dread nightfall coming. Because I'm just like, is it going to happen? Whatever's going on, is it going to happen again tonight? Well, then luckily I got a reprieve. My family came to visit me and they stayed for about 3 or 4 days and all that weirdness stopped. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe it was me. Maybe I'm just scared being by myself, which I didn't think that was the case, but I'm trying to rationalize stuff. And so I told my husband and my daughter, I'm like, hey, I said, there was a rock left and placed in front of my door. And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, isn't that weird? And they're like, oh, come on, Mom. I'm like, no, something left. There was a rock in front of my door. I said, what do you think of that? And they're like, nobody's messing with you. I said, well, I don't think anybody's messing with me. I said, but how did the rock get there? And they were just kind of like my mom did all those years ago. And like people that when you tell them things, they always try to foo-foo it. So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Even though I knew in my head something's going on because me getting scared every night, a rock being left. So anyways, they end up staying their time and then they leave. So once again, same thing happens. I would go out during the day, do my stuff, come home, the fear would come. So one night I'm thinking, what is going on? So I'm watching TV and the kitchen is off to my right. It's a separate room, but I could see it. And I don't know if you've ever been to Maine, but they usually build their houses pretty high up because of the snow in the wintertime. They don't want their doors to get blocked and stuff. So they build them on really, really high slabs normally. That way, you can open your doors and stuff when the snow piles up. So this house was built up really high. And so I would say that window in the kitchen was probably 9, 10 feet high. And then the roof still went a little bit higher than that. Sitting in the living room watching TV, scared, all of a sudden, wham! From the kitchen, I could hear at the top of the kitchen wall next to where like the wall and the ceiling meet, something whacked it. And I just sat there. And now, mind you, I'm there alone. I know nobody. I have no way to defend myself. I'm, in essence, a sitting duck, and something just slaps the side of the house. Now, mind you, as well, everything was still shut down. I was like the only house in that area that had people in it. The whole rest of them were still vacant for the winter. I was the only one there. So my lights and everything were on. So it was obvious somebody was there. And all of a sudden, the side of the house where the kitchen was, up towards the top, not at the bottom part of the wall, at the top of the wall, gets slapped. And I'm petrified. I don't know what to do. And I just sit there and just wonder if anything else is going to happen. You know, I had alarms on all the doors. They have like these little travel alarms that you can slide into the door, and if the door opens and it pops it, and like a siren goes off. So I was just waiting for the sirens to go off. I was waiting for somebody to come in. Nothing else ever happened except for that slap. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I have a rock left at my door. Now the side of my house is getting slapped. And then every night I'm scared. And I'm just like, what is going on? And the part of me kept thinking, okay, maybe, could this be a Sasquatch thing? Because, you know, I've heard things from finding Bigfoot, but I was still like, no, it can't be. It can't be. No. You know, like I said, every night when I had to go up those stairs to pass that window, I really, really, really fought emotionally every night about passing that window. Because to get to bed, I had to. But it just scared me. So a lot of weirdness was going on. And so fast forward, one night I was sitting on the couch. Now this is getting towards the end of my stay, thank goodness. Because I don't think I could have taken much more after this. So I'm sitting on the couch, and the couch was on the wall. Then there was like a little entertainment center, you know, like a little, you know, coffee table. Then there was a little walkway, and then the outside wall. And the TV was mounted on the outside wall. And all that was maybe 5 feet. You know, it was a real long, skinny room. And then there was a big deck on the front of the house. And then they had that really heavy wrought iron furniture. I don't know if you guys knew what that was, but back it was like I always saw either white or black. And it was like made of wrought iron. It was heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Sitting there on the couch at night, watching TV, eating my dinner, having that weird feeling that something is back. And then all of a sudden I heard something grabbed the furniture and pulled it. And I could hear it skipping across the patio, literally right across the wall from me. And I was just like, something moved the furniture, something moved the furniture, something moved the furniture. I was petrified, not only knowing that something is out there and I have no way to defend myself, but there's also 2 sliding glass doors on each side of me at that wall that led out to the deck. And I'm thinking, I know the rest of the house is locked up, and technically these doors are locked, but it is glass. Something could break glass. I mean, I was going through all these scenarios going, is something about to happen? Is something about to happen? But you know that when something's really heavy and metal and you pull it and it does that skipping sound, that's what it was, just on the other side of me. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm so done with this place. I was petrified. And so the very last thing that happened there was nothing but something. I feel to this day, can't prove it, but I feel that I was being possibly infrasounded all those nights, because how else would I know something's outside and to be scared when nothing is happening? You know what I'm saying? So there was something that was happening for me to become scared every night. Just out of no. Now, mind you, the rock wasn't scary. The slapping on the wall was scary. The furniture on the front porch 5 feet away from me being pulled, that was scary. But then towards the end, one night, I was sitting on couch and that scary feeling happened. But then the scary feeling was amped up like 1,000%. I was sitting there and I was literally trying to fight back tears sitting on the couch, and nothing is happening. But I have this overwhelming dread, this fear, and it had to do with that window. For some reason, and this is just me speculating, but I have a feeling that night, if I would have looked out that window, it would have shown itself to me. That's just the feeling I have because I was just so scared that night. I mean, I did not want to walk up those steps. I did not want to pass that window. If I could have like done a belly crawl up it where nothing could have seen me, I would have done that. But I knew I had to pass that window. And of all the nights, like I said, it was just ramped up 1,000%. I did not want to pass that window because I knew if I looked out, there was going to be something there. And so when I got to that window, when I was going to bed that night, I literally put my hand over my face so I could not look. Because now part of me now kicks myself, but back then in the moment, I did not want to see what was out there. I was not ready. And then I got up to the bedroom and I locked the door, and like I said, I went home like the day or two later.
Wow.
But with all that going on, and then I started doing some deep dives and I'm like, oh, I wonder if the people who normally live there knows that there's one around there and it was gifting. Because why all of a sudden would it come and just gift me a rock? Something that they don't even know me. It doesn't even know me. But I still try to wrap around my head about what happened there and why all of it happened. It just makes me wonder if the owners of the property, like I said, it was an Airbnb house, if they knew.
Right.
But that was terrifying. So after that event, when I got back home, I had what I call now PTSD for probably a good month or more. Every night when it would get nighttime here, I would still get scared thinking about what I had just gone through.
Right.
And it took me a little bit to be like, oh, Angie, you're home. You're safe now.
Right.
You can calm down. It took a long time. That really, really, really freaked me out. And then after that, I did a really deep dive for like 2 years trying to learn about these things because I had to. I had to know what was going on. Was I in danger? Was I not in danger? What am I supposed to do when this happens? And so I really started delving deep into it. And that's when I really came to know that, yeah, that was Sasquatch 100% doing what it was doing. Why was it doing it? I don't know. But I'm convinced without a shadow of a doubt because that's just classic behaviors now that I know.
Right. And the feeling, was it the same feeling that you had in Minnesota?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, if my bones could have jumped out of my body to run and hide, it would have. I was petrified. And I had never, ever had that before.
Yeah.
I mean, I've grown up in the woods. I mean, I'm from Arkansas, for crying out loud. I spent my whole life in the woods and I have never been scared like that.
Wow. Yeah. I've never experienced the infrasound that I'm aware of.
I'm assuming it was. I don't know. But in my head, I'm thinking, how did I know that something was out there and to be so scared every night if something wasn't energetically happening?
Did you feel nauseous or anything?
Not that I can remember. I just know that I started feeling really anxious. And I don't know if you've ever had anxiety. It kind of feels like you're like electrically charged inside. You're just kind of just nervous all the time. I started having that when I was up there a lot.
What about your vision?
What do you mean by vision?
Did you notice anything like things were blurry?
That's kind of hard to tell because I wear reading glasses. So if I don't have my glasses on, everything's blurry. But I don't.
I just had to buy my first pair of glasses.
Doesn't that stink?
Oh, it does. I took a picture of myself, sent it to my kids, and said, "Don't get old."
That stinks. But to answer your question, I don't believe that my vision was affected. I don't know. Because like I said, I have to wear reading glasses to read or to be on my phone. I have to have my glasses on.
Right.
But to watch TV, I don't. So I don't think that was affected.
Okay. I just was curious because that's sometimes you hear people say when they feel like they've been zapped or hit with the infrasound. They feel nauseous, or they feel nauseous afterwards. And then some people report, they kind of get blurred vision because the infrasound actually affects their eyes, like they're shaking or something.
I can see that. Like I said, I don't know. Like I said, I couldn't make a definitive statement.
Right.
All I know is how could I be sensing something out there without even seeing it? So I'm still trying to wrap my head around how. I mean, is that just kind of like maybe an innate feeling that you get like when something's not quite right? Does that mean it's infrasound, or is that just something, that's built into you?
Right.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around what exactly was going on.
And you never smelled anything during either of these?
No,
Okay.
never. I've never smelt it.
Okay. Yeah. It's hit or miss on the smell.
Yeah.
The reports that I've taken,
Yeah.
some people report it, some people don't. I wouldn't say it's 50-50, but there's a lot of people who just say, no, I didn't smell anything.
Yeah. Like I said, I've never have, and I'm just kind of wondering, because like you said, some people do smell it and some people don't. I'm just wondering if they have like an ability like a skunk does, that they can release a smell at will if they want to or not. That's kind of where I am right now, because I'm just trying to reconcile why some do and some don't smell it.
Right. Right. So then you go home.
Go home.
And then you said, I didn't have enough fun in Maine, so I need to go back.
Yes. This time though, in Maine, nothing happened.
Okay.
When I went to the other part, I went to Greenville, Maine the following time. It was out in the woods. Like I said, and this was the fall. This was the October one. And I was out there in the woods all the time. Never had anything happen.
I wonder, you said the first time you were there was in April. You said the snowbirds hadn't come back yet.
Yep.
Now you're going back in October. Snowbirds have just left. Maybe it takes a while for them to get amped back up and, get comfortable with less people.
Possible. Yeah. And I was in a completely different area too.
That's true.
Where I was when this encounter happened, like I said, it was on the coast, near the Bar Harbor area in Southwest Harbor, Maine. When I went back up there in October, it was in Greenville, Maine, which is probably 2 or 3 hours away. And like I said, nothing happened there. And I was in the woods all the time. Because I was kind of already, I had been studying. So I'm like, okay. But nothing ever happened then. My next encounter happened a year or two later. My husband, Minnesota, I'm telling you, we were in Minnesota, North Shore again. And we went up there for our anniversary because, I kind of love it up there. And so my husband always is like, what do you want to do for the anniversary? Go to the North Shore. So back to the North Shore we went. And we got another little house. This time we were in a little town called, I called it Schroeder. So I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's kind of near the North Shore. It's just south of a little town called Lutzen. But it's all kind of up there together. And I had rented a house on Lake Superior. So if you walked out the back door of that house, there was a giant boulder and then there was the lake. So we were right on Lake Superior, but it was very wooded. Whoever owns the home has the landscaping was just about as high as the house. I mean, the flowers were just huge around that place. And we got there extremely late. We got there about 1 a.m. And by the time we unpacked and got settled and got to bed, it was like 2 a.m. And I was still quite razzed from that day of traveling because, we flew and then we flew in Minneapolis and then we had to make a 4-hour drive from Minneapolis up to the North Shore. So I was still kind of adrenalized. So my husband's over there laying in bed and I'm just laying, sleeping. And I'm over here laying with my eyes open, scrolling on my phone, just, nothing to do because there wasn't a TV that we knew of at the time. We found it the next day, but that night I didn't know there was a TV. I'm laying there in bed trying to go to sleep, nothing happening. And all of a sudden I hear, do you know, you're probably close to my age, maybe thereabouts.
I
Back
just
in the
turned
day,
49.
okay, well, we're close. I'm 52, so we're close.
I honestly, when you said that earlier, I really thought you were a lot younger than me. And I'm not just saying that
Really?
because you're my guest. I really did. Like when we met at Beachfoot,
Yeah.
you know, I was like, I thought maybe early to mid 40s.
Oh, really? Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. But
Yeah, a
anyway,
lot of people get
that's
surprised when they hear
whatever.
my age.
I might even take that part out. So,
So back in the day, if you would listen to a tape recorder and you were lazy and you didn't feel like hitting stop and then rewind or fast forward, you would just go from play to straight to either rewinding or fast forwarding, and it made that type of sound. That's what I heard. I was laying there, and like I said, this is an old wood cabin. There's no insulation. You're just separated from the logs and then outside. There's no sheetrock, nothing. It's just logs. It's an old cabin that they kind of redid. I was laying there, pitch black, and all of a sudden I hear that blip, 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 and then bam, 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 gone. And I knew, like I said, I had already been now diving into the Bigfoot world. And as I'm laying there, I was like, at first, my first thought was, that sounds like a tape recorder. And then my thought was, holy cannoli, that was the chatter. And I said, and the boom, 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 was it walking away?
yeah.
And I'm like, I just heard the samurai chatter that they talk about. And I was just like, so the next morning, my husband wakes up. I'm like, you're not going to believe this. I said, I heard chatter last night. Now, he's not a Bigfoot guy. He's like, what? You heard what? I'm like, the samurai chatter. I heard it. And he's just like, samurai chatter. I'm like, okay, Bigfoot talk. Oh, he doesn't know all this terminology. I said, I heard it. I said, I was laying in bed last night trying to fall asleep. And I said, and I heard it. I said, and I heard it take 3 steps as it was walking away.
Wow.
So I zoom out the door and I'm looking all around, and the area was not conducive to footprints. Like I said, we were on a giant granite boulder, and the ground was really hard. And so I'm like, I'm putting a table out and I'm going to put a gift out here. And I'm going to see, like I said, by then I was already kind of in the Bigfoot world, learning stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to see if I can get some more interaction. Nothing else ever happened.
So you were probably really excited that Ron Moorhead was at Beachfoot then.
Oh yeah. I went and I talked to him. I said, I heard it too. And so we were talking about that. And I said, Ron, I know some people think, it's kind of controversial, your recording. I said, but I'm a 100% believer. I've heard it myself. So I said, I believe you 100%. I said, I've heard it myself. And it was so quick. I just could not believe. And so I'm just wondering that we got there so late. Maybe we disturbed it. Maybe it was, I don't know.
In Bigfootese, it was like, daggone it, I was trying to sleep and these people come in and waking me up.
Right? Or daggone it, I thought they were gone I thought, nobody was going to be here this weekend. We could have the area to ourselves.
We had a party planned. Daggone it.
You're on a rock. Get out of here. It's our party rock. But yeah, I could not believe it. So after that, I was just like, daggum, these things and I kind of keep intersecting and I don't understand why, and I still wonder why. I mean, I've had experiences since then, but as well. And then there's some people who never have anything happen, like Peter Byrne and all that. Some of those guys, the original 4 Horsemen, never saw one.
Yeah.
Not only have I seen one, but I have all these experiences. Like I said, I have more. And I just wonder why. I just wonder why some people seem to have experiences and some don't. I don't know. I think about that a lot.
Right. Once again, thanks to Elite Mounts for the new episode format. If you like this format better than the way I was doing it before, where we do the housekeeping here at the end, let me know in the comments. Make sure you're checking out all the descriptions of all my videos. Down below, you're going to find a list of all my favorite podcasts. Nevermore Hollows, Drunken Cryptids, Chumming with the Spirits, Ghost Gossip. So many great podcasts. I like them. I think you're going to enjoy them. give them a listen. Myths, Monsters, and Mullets is proud to be a part of Midnight Realm Radio. It's an internet radio station featuring podcasts from the paranormal to true crime that runs 24 hours, 7 days a week. You can find a link down below in the description. I really do appreciate all the support I've been getting over the last couple months. If you haven't yet, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. Like, comment, share, tell a friend about the show. That's the only way we can continue to grow. And once again, if you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share and you'd like to be on the show, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Good night, everyone.
Shadow in the pines lurking in the dusky air. Bigfoot stomps through the woods like he don't care. Lights in the sky flash green then blue. Aliens descending with a secret or two. Whispers in the breeze, cold fingers down your spine. Ghosts in the graveyard, twisting through time. Eyes wide open in the dead of night. The myths and monsters giving one hell of a fright. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methencamp's fiery soul. He takes us where the wild unknown flows. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methencamp's fiery soul. He takes us where the wild unknown flows. Down by the bayou, you hear a raspy growl. Swamp gas glowing as the coyotes howl. A UFO